Let's record. So, yeah, lovely to have Cheryl Dean today for our interview. So looking forward to this, talking nutrition. So Cheryl's a personal trainer, nutritionist, soft massage therapist. She's been an Ironman finisher, triathlete, and an endurance athlete herself. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to having this conversation, because it's been a topic that, you know, that we have an awful lot in clinic. We've talked about it an awful lot over coffee. So it's fantastic that we can put this on film. So Cheryl, I'll hand over you to just let everyone know a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I've been in the health and fitness industry for over 20 years, worked in both private and public sector, both here in the UK and 3 years in Australia and New Zealand, which was great for development and working with different kind of athletes. I work with recreational athletes from training for a 10K right through to Ironman, elite, a couple of celebrities. But I've always had that passion for nutrition. I've had my own business from day dot, which I've done alongside other stuff. And then 6 years ago, I took the plunge and went completely self-employed. So I create meal plans and recipes. And I also, like you say, as a massage therapist, I'm able to advise people on the massage bed through nutrition, as well as doing one-to-one consultations and stuff. I've lectured as well at Bolton College and teach other PTs to become PTs. So anything nutrition or exercise based is kind of my field. So yeah, looking forward to today.
Perfect. Well, that definitely sounds like the right person for this then, doesn't it? So, but I think we need to start with, I mean, one of the things I've been very familiar with when I'm going through my social media feed, let's be totally honest at this, is that there seems to be an awful lot of, let's put this politely, nutrition experts that have a Facebook account and telling us what we need to be eating and what diets we need to do. So, you know, one of the big things I think we need to, you know, open with, if it's all right, is just looking at the common myths that you come across that people should watch out for, really, within nutrition.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the reasons why I have such a passion for doing this. And one of my values is trying to educate people on nutrition, not to follow a diet. There are so many out there. You can pick up a magazine or, like you say, go on social media, and there's so many people promoting the latest fad. You know, one of the things is that fat will make you fat. You know, there's so many different, there's different types of fat. And as a female athlete myself, and that I advise other people, is that they should be getting the right sources of omega-3, which will reduce the amount of inflammation in the body after exercise. So I try to educate people about the right types of fat and the amount of fat that should be having in the diet. Carbohydrates is another big one. That
swearing, isn't it?
I know, exactly. It's that naughty word, the C word, another naughty C word. Yeah, that, you know, if you're going to eat carbohydrates, then it's going to lead to weight gain. Whereas what I'm trying to say to people is that carbohydrates provides a source of energy, particularly for endurance training. You know, there's the elite athletes out there who do purely plant-based diets where they can go off, like you or me.
Thought mine are all turned off.
I know. With carbohydrates, yeah, it is a source of fuel. It's like putting petrol in a car. If you're going to eat too much of it, yes, it's going to lead to weight gain. But again, it's trying to educate people on the right types of carbohydrates to provide that right type of fuel. Protein, which is another one, and I see too many people eating protein at the wrong point of a training session. So they'll take a protein bar out on a long ride, when too much protein can actually be detrimental to your performance, whereas getting the right amount of glucose and fructose will actually enhance your performance. So someone like Chrissy Wellington, for example, she takes a mixture of glucose and fructose through gels and through sports drinks, which could lead on to a whole new topic about depending on what type of exercise you're doing, what kind of intensity. So going through a recreational athlete who might go out and do a 3-mile run, it'll then text me and ask me, well, what should I be having as my post-recovery meal? So if you've gone out and you've done a 30-minute run, then you don't need to be refueling the same way as if you've been out and you've done a 4-mile ride. So it's getting the right combination of protein, carbs and fats, and trying to educate people. And again, particularly with female, because those are the kind of athletes that I deal with, that they might start on this weight loss journey where they've got 3 stone, for example, to lose. So you might, yes, reduce the amount of carbohydrate, increase the protein, but once they've lost 2 to 3 stone and they're starting to exercise more, then they need to increase the amount of carbohydrate, the amount of fats and the amount of protein. So I think the intensity level, the volume, the type of training, your weight, there's so much. There isn't a one diet that suits all, which frustrates me because you get certain diets that are out there, which, yes, by cutting calories and by cutting certain food groups will initially make you to lose weight. But we all know, but at the end of going back to eating normal, you're going to put that weight all back on.
And I think that's what you see a lot of, you see a lot of that, don't you? You know, and I know we're going to talk about later on in this chat about, you know, the dangers of increasing your exercise, but actually not increasing your calorie intake and then that leading to injury. So I think that's a really nice point, that actually carbohydrates aren't sins, or they aren't, but, you know, used well and in the correct proportions, along with, you know, the other proteins and fats in your diet, getting that balance right and balancing it to your levels of exercise.
Definitely.
So one of the things for me is, you know, obviously from a physio world, what we see an awful lot of, you know, is, you know, we're encouraging people to get active. And, you know, as we are filming this in the time of, we're still in lockdown. So if you're watching this afterwards, sorry, but we're in the time of, you know, what we're seeing is that an awful lot of people are, you know, we had to talk off camera that all we can see is people out running or on their bike. So definitely, you know, with the government encouraging people to exercise more. So what could people be doing better? You know, what are some great tips that people could be doing better now that they may have just started exercising and because of this, or they've started to do more exercise and to try and recover and keep that going?
Plan and preparation is absolutely crucial. So whether you're just starting to train or whether you've been a long-term athlete, and I think, well, as you've mentioned, we are still in lockdown, and I think that people are shopping less. So I think one of the things that you can start to do is buy frozen fruit and veg, because frozen fruit is just as good, if not better, than fresh, because it's packed, it's well, once it's picked, it's packed and it's frozen, so it retains all the nutrients. Whereas at the moment, we're not getting the same sort of delivery that we were before lockdown, where, you know, fruit and veg is losing its nutrients while it's sat on the shelf. So I think planning your meals, which whether you're in lockdown or not, I think planning is absolutely crucial. Plan your meals and plan your shopping list so you know what you're getting. Make sure that you're getting enough lean meats. So I would recommend to anyone, whether you're a recreational athlete or elite athlete, that you should be having 2 to 3 portions of oily fish. So you can buy frozen salmon, you can buy tinned salmon and sardines, which will provide you with the omega-3, which will help to reduce inflammation after you've trained. You know, you can have that with a pack of frozen vegetables. So it doesn't have to be expensive. And that goes back to one of the other myths that, you know, eating well, whole foods, wholesome foods and nutrient dense foods is expensive. It doesn't have to be. And I think eating lots of fruit and vegetables and eating the right types of fruit and vegetables. So berries, for example, frozen blueberries and raspberries and strawberries, which are packed full of vitamin C, you can get frozen. You don't have to be relying on bananas and bananas and pears and oranges. So I think one of the key things is definitely planning and preparation, so that you know what you're going to be eating before a run, what you're going to be having when you get in, and not relying on protein shakes and, you know, energy bars and jelly babies if you're going out for a run.
I think that's a really, really good tip, because I think you know, that is, you know, we're all been guilty, and hand on heart, that, you know, if you're not prepped and you are hungry, then the first thing you do is you're going to go to the things that are convenient, and that obviously contains probably not all the best stuff, and you know, contains more sugar and all the bad stuff that we try and stay away from. I think that's a really, really nice tip.
Yeah, and I think that I've mentioned about getting your oily fish, your chicken, and I think at this time is eating in season. Supporting local businesses, getting stuff from your butchers, not relying on processed foods, processed packaged ham and chicken. Again, batch cooking, we've got a little bit more time on our hands, drag out that slow cooker that's at the back of the cupboard and start to plan and freeze meals. So again, that you've got that, if you're coming in from a long run and you're starving, rather than going for 3 bowls of cereals, before you go out for the run, pull out something from the back of the fridge that could be, a homemade chili that you made at the weekend that you can have with some rice. You might buy or cook some salmon before you go out, have it with some rice and some broccoli. It's the perfect meal that you can have once you get in from training. Don't buy all those goodies of chocolates and cakes and biscuits, because your glycogen levels will be depleted when you've been for a run or a ride. And those are the first foods that you're going to crave when you get in. So if you've got that meal ready, you've got the slow cooker on, or you've made your soup with the soup maker, the temptation isn't there.
I think that's a nice thing. And I think the nice thing now is that for those people that are listening to this and are going to do that, I mean, I have to say I am a batch cooker, because, I think it's, for me, it definitely revolutionized how I eat, because it's, I am quite organized and quite planned on the basis that I'm busy. And that I'm one of them people where if I have done a training session, if I don't eat within, which is a question I'm thinking about, so you might be able to answer this, but if I don't eat within half an hour of training, I'm absolutely ravenous and I'll eat anything that I can get my hands on. So I have to be very prepared, because that's just how I am. So I think that's a really nice thing. Is there an optimum time after training where we could eat, or should we?
No, the ideal or the guidelines are sort of 20 to 60 minutes. I usually say 30 minutes to try and get that right combination of 3 to 1 carbs to protein. The ideal one that you can take wherever you are, because it's not always, depending on where you are, if now they're allowed to drive and exercise. So a chocolate milk, it's the perfect ratio of 3 to 1. All the top athletes have it. If you're in the supermarket, 50p Yazoo. It doesn't have to be a fancy brand, but it's the perfect combination. You get your protein shakes and you have all your supplements, but if you've had that time to prep, wholesome, nutrient-dense food is the best thing that you can do, rather than going for a highly expensive sport branded protein shake.
And I guess the nice thing is now, if you can get into the habit of doing that and creating those good habits, then that's only going to help you either if it is a performance goal or a weight loss goal moving forward.
Definitely. Habits is one of the things, whether you're looking at weight loss or creating anything that you want to and goal to achieve, it's creating those habits. So even if you give yourself one new habit to achieve each week, breakfast is one of the big things that I come across often. People either skip it, or again, it's one of those high carb without a balance breakfast. So again, that can come down back to the preparation. So birch and muesli is one of my favorites. Whereas, just before I go to bed, a few scoops of oats, my frozen blueberries, a bit of almond milk, some Greek yogurt and some flax seeds. Put it in a Tupperware, you put it in the fridge, go out for my early morning run, and it's done for when I get back.
Yeah.
So.
And it is but it's great when you say that, because actually it is so simple, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think people overthink it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be complicated. And that goes right back to the very first question that you said, is people read too much and they overcomplicate nutrition. But if you stick to the basics of eating good quality meat, fruit and vegetables, and we're not going to get the cravings through sugar if you're not always eating it. You can get your sweet cravings even through, and I know it might sound a bit extreme, but just chewing some frozen mango, it's high in sugar. Bananas that are going off, chop them up and put them in the freezer. you can add them to a smoothie. There's a lot more healthier ways of getting sugar than always relying on a Kit Kat or a Mars bar.
Right, I'm doing that. I like that idea. Yeah, because but I guess again, it's just these are great little things. I mean, I've probably been speaking to nutritionists for a long time. I've never once heard that, and I think that's something which we can all take away. And so that, brilliant. So I agree. I think everything's good. Now, one of the things that I've come across an awful lot in the athletic population, and probably also the weight loss community, where people have started to increase this, and is not actually eating enough. So I know people have, there's this fear of overeating, and I think we've covered that everything's not scary if you eat in the right proportions and if we plan well. But what's the, about people not eating enough and then trying to exercise at high intensity?
Again, yeah. So you're going to have a nutrient deficiency. Fat, for example, if we're not having enough dietary fat, particularly in female runners, it can lead to stress fractures. So as going back to thinking that fats are bad, but by having good quality polyunsaturated fat, so adding some avocado and some nuts, some nut oils and some seeds to your diet will help to prevent osteoporosis. Because I was watching one of your videos with Brian Fogarty, and he was talking about strength and conditioning, which there's too many endurance athletes out there that aren't doing the strength and conditioning. Yeah. And, if you're not doing your strength and conditioning, as well as having a well-balanced diet, can lead to a loss in bone density, and it can lead to osteoporosis as well. So getting your foods through iron, and also taking iron on board with vitamin C, so it helps to absorb the iron. So foods such as pork, venison, green leafy vegetables all provide high sources of iron. But if you have that with an orange, so I often advise clients to try and get fruit in with a salad or in with a meal, rather than just eating an apple, an orange or a banana on its own, which will raise blood sugar levels. So if you combine that with a fat or a protein, it balances your blood sugar levels. So rather than and not eating, I know so many clients who have come back, they'll go out for an hour and a half run, jump on the scale, see that they've lost 2 pounds, which is all through dehydration, as we know, but then think, well, right, that's brilliant, I'm not going to eat now. And then you've also got dehydration, which can then lead to a lot of gastro problems. So ultimately, you're going to lead to injury and illness if you're not eating the right sort of things, but also you're going to lead to deficiencies within your nutrition.
And I think that's a really important point, and the reason why I wanted to raise it with this, and the reason why one of the things we want to get you on is because obviously, one of the things we see in clinic on a regular basis is people coming in, and there's that almost story of, I think men and women, I'm not, no females, it can create different problems, internally. But I think with men and women, both, that especially if they're starting exercise, that there's definitely a need, or they start exercise to become weight loss. They go on, and I'm going to use a diet to combine it, because the two work together. And I think, one of the things that we see is that as they start to get fitter and they exercise more, or especially at high intensity, they don't always then match the calorie intake to do it. And like I think you used it there, there's then a calorie deficit, isn't there?
Yeah, and one thing that's really important, which probably a lot of people don't know, if you are injured, or you've even been through surgery, that your basal metabolic rate, so the rate at which you burn calories at rest, is actually higher. So it's 15% higher. So you need to take on more calories when you're injured, because of the rate at which the body is trying to repair itself.
I think that is an absolute golden nugget. And, literally I've been writing down tips here for myself, but I think one of the things is, I think that's something which is really, really important, because I think that, again, the myth, let's talk about myth in physio, that when you're not training and you've had surgery or you're injured and you're not exercising, I don't want to put on weight. So you actually, again, you probably cut your food intake down.
Yeah, not only are you reducing the amount of calories, but people tend to crave more carbohydrates because they tend to have a less nutrient dense foods, whereas protein is what the body needs in order to repair muscle. So you also need to increase your muscle intake. So as we know that through injury, depending on the severity of the injury, if we're not exercising, we're going to lose bone and we're going to lose muscle mass. So in order to help that, we need to increase the amount of protein that we're actually eating, as well as calories.
And I think also, you know, from the, I know, you know, moving on to that rehab, and I know we're kind of flitted between the two, but also one of the things for me is, especially if you are an athlete, if you describe yourself, you know, if you're a recreation athlete or moving on to like an elite athlete or an amateur elite athlete, you know, one of the things for me is, especially if you've ever been in our in our rehab gym, you work harder than most other athletes anyway, because there's a lot of catching up to do and there's a lot of strength work to do. So, you know, you probably are putting more time in the gym.
Yeah.
And you're burning more calories through exercise because you're trying to, you know, you have to push your body to that. So, you know, if you're then not taking in the extra nutrition or the extra calories, then again, you're loading yourself up to fail, aren't you?
Definitely. And if you're injured, that is the time that you want to be, you know, any athlete, whether you are elite or recreational, you want to be getting back to performance quickly. So if you're eating the right type of foods, you're taking the right calories on board. Now, I'm not saying that when you're injured, you need the same amount of calories that you do when you were training, but you certainly need more calories than you do if you're completely sedentary.
Yeah.
And the quicker that you can get the right balance of foods within your diet, the quicker you're going to be back to performance.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really, really strong point. And I think it's something which is overlooked by a lot of people, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess one of the big things for me is what tips could you give, you know, that, I mean, already I was going to, you know, we always ask this question, what tips would you give people to, you know, that what are the nuggets that we could put? I think this interview's been absolutely full of loads of them already. So it's been brilliant. You know, what else could you do? You know, if people at home are looking to increase their activity levels, you know, they've started doing their, you know, shall we mention it, the Joe Wicks online every morning, and they're starting to increase. But, you know, these habits of exercise are definitely creeping in. I think, you know, that there's a common, definitely a theme, you know, of people exercising at home. Even my mum and dad have started doing exercises in the living room. So, you know, exercise, what could people be doing if they're now, you know, what are the best tips that people could really do to change and make some good habits now that they're in this position?
I think eating whole foods so that they're not relying on protein bars and supplements and protein shakes. As we mentioned before about meal planning and preparation, but having a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, time and time again, particularly at this time, because people are doing a lot of click and collect and doing online ordering, they're buying the same foods. If you do the same training, you will get the same results. If you eat the same foods, you're going to keep either plateauing out. So whether you're doing a training program, that needs to change every 4 to 6 weeks. If you're doing a weight loss eating plan, you need to change the foods that you're eating every 4 to 6 weeks. So if you're doing a click and collect or you're doing a shopping list, rotate the fruits and vegetables that you're eating. If you don't eat aubergines and you don't eat avocados, put them on your list next week. You know, try to eat what's in season, but do swap about so you're getting a high or a better range of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals within your diet. You know, we know there's vitamin A right through to K, and vitamin C and vitamin A in particular, in terms of going back to injury, they they help to rebuild collagen within the body. So if there's inflammation within the body, once the body starts to build scar tissue and you start to help to build the collagen within the body, citrus fruits, so having lemon, strawberries, oranges, but combining that with vitamin A through carrots and sweet potato also enhances your recovery. Make sure that you're getting your omega-3. Make sure that you're having lots of lean white meat, so poultry and chicken, and that you are eating within 30 to 60 minutes of when you finish that training session. You don't leave it as well. I know we've talked a lot about food, but not forgetting about water. You know, we've had some really warm days. There we go, good to see. But when we're exercising, and particularly more than normal, we're going to be sweating, we're losing electrolytes and we're losing sodium. So the easiest way that you can make your own, and you can add Himalayan salts and a little bit of lemon juice to water, which is a good recovery, or buy a diarrhea. You know, you can get Tesco's own or supermarket's own. Let's start with that, because so many people will be increasing the amount that they're exercising, but particularly in this heat. And if you're running, and all the cyclists that I've seen, you know, they're coming in, but are you, and I'm not stereotyping, but I know for a fact that men don't drink half as much water as women. They seem to be scared of the stuff. It seems to be a Dilda's brew instead. So water, but not just through drinking water, because it's the electrolyte loss and the sodium loss. So you need to replace those as well. So you can get the little tabs, or having a diarrhea, or adding some salt, or having some olives, you know, some salty foods. And I'm saying olives and not crisps, because that's the first thing that people seem to think of Pringles when you mention a salty snack.
Well, I thought peanuts would have been the, no, salted peanuts. Is that not what you go for, no?
Depends on how hard you've trained.
No, I'm kidding. No, and I think that's the thing, you know, and the nice thing is, you know, people make it very, very complicated. And I think what you've done in half an hour is actually make it very, very simple, haven't you? And I think, you know, and I know you, and I mean that politely in the sense of, you know, you've got, you know, that's why we wanted to get you on, because you've got this massive vast of knowledge. And I think that the skill that you've got is you can break it down into a very simple thing that people can learn and just change those simple habits. You know, I mean, I will definitely be freezing me bananas that are just about to go off, because I'm a habit for throwing them away. So I'm having them. That's my little nugget of taking away. But I think there's been loads of really, you know, really, really nice things that you've added in. So I really appreciate this today.
No, I just hope people can exercise sensibly, but really think about what they're putting into the body, because I do think that nutrition can help with injury prevention. And I think it's also a cycle of motivation, that if we're eating well, you're looking after your body. You know, there's masses around mental health as well at the minute. So going into terms of exercise, and I know we were chatting a little bit before about it, but getting outside. Now we're allowed to have a picnic. You know, that could even be one of those habits that we were talking about, is getting that preparation and taking a nice chicken salad wrap out, so that when we come out of lockdown, we're not relying on Costa and going nipping in and getting a panini.
Yeah.
And this is the time to sort of really think about what you're putting into your body. So ultimately, we're preventing injury and overall, you know, you're looking after your health.
And I think that's what it's about, isn't it? And that's one of the big things that we wanted to, you know, to come about, because, you know, one of the things for me is that, you know, we're all about trying to keep people injury free as much as possible, which is ironic coming from a physiotherapy company. I appreciate, but, you know, there's so many simple things. So for people out there that who want to know more, how can people find you and get in touch with you?
So on the website, Cheryl Dean Coaching, you can type that and it'll go straight into the website. Facebook, Instagram, CD Wellness Coach. Yeah, offer obviously more online. So I do online meal plans and recipes. Facebook, I'm constantly putting new little recipe ideas on, from protein pancakes to fruit frittata. So every other day I'm putting videos on there that are highlighting recipes, which again are quick and easy and usually no more than 4 ingredients. So yeah, if anybody wants any more tips, hints, or advice, then yeah, check out cheryldeancoaching.co.uk.
What we will do is we'll put all these links on our post when we post this out for you. But listen, I won't take up any of your time. Honestly, it's been really interesting. There's been absolutely some fantastic little some tips there, which hopefully everyone can take away and use really, really well. So I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Stay very safe, and I'm sure I'll speak to you very soon.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers. See you later.